up for the department heads or whatever, and any questions you might have that somebody might know about. I know Clay's had a good experience this week on an issue, so. Anyway, let's go. The first item is the pallet situation. And Audrey, they're coming back, or what? We have them coming back. We're just going to talk to them today.
They're gonna call in.
Call in?
Mr. Jimber.
Okay.
And they sent some pictures of the progress they've made. We have them to show. I don't know if we're just gonna wait until time or if y'all wanna see them now. We just have some pictures of the progress they've made. They're on, on schedule.
They're in good shape.
A little behind. May take an extra month or two to get it all completed. But they working, so I appreciate it. I rode by there, it looked good. I can see how they're cleaning it up.
Great.
Got to heat it off some, so.
Good job. Good job.
Hadn't got any complaints.
Item number 2 is an item for the fire department about ambulance. Is this about, Chief, you know what, tell me about this. Afternoon.
What this pertaining to is a complaint that I received in the latter part of 2019 from Mr. Bollinger, from a citizen that actually complained to Mr. Bollinger.
Is that microphone on?
Is red light on? No. See no red light.
Just talk loud.
Red light. Red light? Red light like a red coat. Red light? Right beside
I don't see a red light.
Okay.
There you go.
Found the red light.
Now we got you.
It actually was a gray light, but.
There you go. Great light. Okay.
So, latter part of 2019, Mr. Bollinger and I talked. He had received a complaint from a citizen that had an incident where she required the ambulance services. And I believe one of the ambulance services transported her, and the insurance company paid an amount, but then she was billed for the rest of it. And so after investigating, we found out that we have 2 ambulance companies. We knew that, of course. We had 2 ambulance companies. One is within network, Blue Cross Blue Shield network, and the other one is not. And so basically what happens is when you're not in network, just at Blue Cross Blue Shield, just like your insurance works, they pay $1,097 for transport. If that ambulance company charge $2,300, then they accept the $1,097 from Blue Cross and bill the citizen for the other $1,000. So Haynes is within network, which they accept the $1,097. There's no additional cost to the citizen. So what this amendment is to make sure that both ambulance companies is using the same fee schedule for 911 calls.
Good.
Because during 911 situations, you don't have time to shop around for the best prices. And since the ordinance for the ambulance is regulated by the fire department, by the council, then I want to bring it back to you and ask you to add in the billing section that anyone operating ambulance services in the city to be within the network, Blue Cross Blue Shield network.
Very good. And I understand that. It works that situation out. Great.
Yes, sir.
Fair to the customer. Good. Item number 3 is you're pulling that one, right?
Yes, sir.
Over.
He withdrew
Chief,
that.
you go. What we say?
He withdrew number 3.
Pulling it. Okay. You're wearing mufflers, folks. I can't hear you.
Number 3 has been withdrawn by Chief.
Okay. All right, number 4. Mr. Bollinger, you want to talk about that one?
I'm going to let Mr. Center,
Okay.
Planning Controls, talk about this. Mr. Tyson is out of town.
Okay.
Good afternoon, councilors. My name is James Center. I'm a land use control specialist in the land use division. I'm in my 20th year, and I've been charged with the distribution and review in the completion of development plans for the last 20 years. So anything that has been done in the last 20 years, I've pretty much had my hands on.
Right.
What we're asking for is to repeal the process of going to the Planning Commission because it's become a hindrance. By the time we get to the Planning Commission with a development plan, the City Council is either already rezoned the property or the zoning was in place. And with this in case, what it is that we've got developers and landowners that have gone through the process, and when they get to the point of the development plan, it should not be as difficult as it is right now, and presenting it to the Planning Commission has become somewhat an issue. And it gets the neighbors stirred up, and it upsets the neighbors when they can't do anything. But the fact is if it's in place, the owner and the developer has a right to do what's there. And nobody wants a gas station next to them. The perfect street is a cul-de-sac on both ends. But we've got people on staff, and I've got a technical review committee that I have people from each department that are at my disposal, at my disposal, and in fact they have to sign off. And I was thinking about it last night, and between the 4 or 5 people that are on the technical review committee and the limited staff we have right now, we're still in excess of 200 years experience. So where we're at there is that, the Planning Commission is not really going to give us any more guidance than we already know, and we seem to just be stirring the pot with some of the commissioners.
Exactly, it does. I agree with you. Because it does disturb them. They can't do a thing about it. They come down here and complain, but it's over. The game's over when they get here.
I got something I want to, add to that. I understand that it's a frustration, kind of having people come down and they all upset, and there's nothing the Planning Commission can do about it. They can't vote it up or down, give any direction, any of that thing. I get that. But people like to know what's going on. They like to be able to come down here and voice their opinion. And when we take that, you may not hear it, but I can better believe that they'll call this council. Every time something pop up, they're going to be calling us saying something's there, because they haven't had any outlet to voice their opinion. So I know it's frustrating, to get there. I get it. If you can't do anything, why hear it? That makes sense to me. I understand that. But I don't know. I almost think it's better to leave it in place than to take it out, because you have, at the end of the day, we serve people.
Oh, yes, ma'am. I didn't mean frustrating from my standpoint. I meant frustrating for the neighborhood.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, there's not anything that could be done.
Well,
The main thing is that the rezoning, and that is part of your purview, and you will have guidance, and they will have put input at that time. And the things that are already zoned are there. And back to the legalities, ma'am, a person has the right to develop their property within the rules.
I get it.
One of the things that I asked when I was told this, and I tend to agree with it because I've been doing it for a little over 35 years, most cities have done away with any of the public hearings if there's nothing that can be accomplished out of
Right.
it. The paperwork, the time it takes the developer to come down or his representatives to come. I still believe, though, in putting up a sign. The sign says call. I think James would tell you that their department has a lot of those calls that said, hey, I saw a sign. Can you tell me what it is? And they kind of go through it. We also have that, I think, now up where they can view it, don't we, James, online? The DP?
Yes, sir. With the agenda, the Planning Commission agenda, what we'll probably would have to do is spin something off to separate it from the Planning Commission.
Because if it's not on their agenda, then it's not online then, right?
No, ma'am. I think what's been discussed is of course guidance from the council here, but also the putting it online and letting you know it's online. And if we need to post signs, then we'll post signs that will give a number, and we can direct them to the information if we can't answer it. Most of the time, when someone calls, you know, a lot of times it's, oh, that's okay, well, I knew that was coming, or what have you. And I do want to make one other point. If some of the concern is something being possibly put in out of place, anything that doesn't measure up and meet the zoning ordinance would have to go to the Board of Adjustment for some type of variance. So if it doesn't meet the criteria to the letter, then it would go to the Board of Adjustments for a parking variance or a setback variance or what have you.
Which is
So
what
if
we
it,
hear.
if it doesn't have to go to the Board of Adjustment, that means that the development plan meets the criteria to the letter.
I got a question.
Okay.
How many site development plans y'all think y'all hear in a 6-month time period or a year, however you want to do?
Not near as many as we did. Just the economy. Councilman, I would say 25, 30. A lot of them are additions to other things. Probably between 25 and 40.
30 a year?
Yes, sir.
Question, if the property is already developed, already zoned commercial, and all you're going to do is approve a site development plan, at that particular time, is that when the neighborhood starts talking about the lighting, you know, the setbacks, if they're going to build a berm or trees or whatever? Is that not where that's discussed in that site development plan?
No, sir, that should actually be at the rezoning level.
But what if it's already rezoned and the property does not come to us? For example, the gas station that you had the other day, I think you made reference to on Bell Road, is already zoned commercial property. We're never going to see that property.
Yes, sir.
So is that sort of where that's hashed out?
No, sir, it's still, I mean, the property that's been zoned for years and years did not meet the same scrutiny as what the council does now with the rezonings.
No,
Property that was rezoned years ago just did not come under the same scrutiny, and
Right, listen, I
and
understand all
so
that.
those things are not in place, or if they are, they're very few and far between.
But I know a lot of neighborhoods have talked about the monumental signs. I mean, it's little stuff. The dumpsters not near the residential side of the house. Can the planning commission still not do anything about lighting, about the monumental signs at that site development?
Well, the lighting, the industry takes care of the lighting for the most part, just because of the way things are developed. We are very conscious of anything that borders residential, especially if it's old zoning. We had a development plan on Atlanta Highway where the old bank was, there next to Bradley, and we're always very concerned when something has been dormant and been sitting there for years, and a lot of people may or may not know that it is zoned that. So we're very considerate in making sure that buffers are met, things are in place. They've evolved over the last 20 years. The landscape ordinance has helped with the buffering, and that's relatively new in speaking. So there are things in place by the ordinance, by staff, well, just to be honest, you know, good old common sense, and then policy. We have policies that you know, are written and unwritten, and we can, you know, we make sure that dumpsters are as far removed from residentials and things like that.
But if you still have a site development plan, if you guys still listen to it, or however you want to say it, would that not be the time for the neighborhood to have some input on it? And, you know, by law, I don't think you can vote a site development plan down, can you?
Well,
I mean, it passes.
by law, by the Attorney General's opinion, the Planning Commission can't vote on the development plans, period. And that was probably about a decade ago when we had similar situations we're having right now. I believe that, Mr. Pruitt, I believe that it'd be very easy to say that if we put them up on the website and we get a call and we get a legitimate concern and one that is valid and one that we can work with the developer on, then staff would do that. We don't, I mean, just because somebody doesn't want it there doesn't mean it's not going to
No,
happen.
and listen, James, I understand it, but sometimes you're legitimate and the neighborhood's legitimate or sometimes different. If you live right next to the property and they just want an avenue to vent, if you will.
Well, and that's, yes, sir, I understand.
And I agree with Mr. Pruitt that sometimes, you know, these type of opportunities for the neighborhood and the developer to come together, they feel safer here and feel that whatever they tell them in this environment is going to be true versus them calling them over the phone and then they say, they just ignored me. You know, I asked them about, can they make sure the lights don't shine this way or, you know, just small little things to make them feel comfortable, but they feel safer in this environment, so.
Well, one suggestion I may have there is that for several years or for several months while we were waiting on Attorney General opinion to come back, I personally took anybody with concerns to a different area, and that was when we were in the old council chambers. I took them to the little room y'all used to meet in, and I'm going to say that I 95% of the time addressed their concerns and took them in consideration, and something like that could still be possible. It wouldn't be as easy now under the conditions we are, but it's just the planning commission is just not the right venue right now for development plans that cannot be altered or stopped.
I have one more
I got
question,
one
Mr. General, and I'm done.
You might be
Wait,
finna ask a
just one. Is it worth asking for another Attorney General's opinion? Curious?
We've got a different attorney general.
I was just curious.
I don't know. State law and also, Mr. Pruitt, the fact that Mr. Bollinger referred to, I've been doing this 20 years. Before that, I was doing it in the private sector. And before I came, there were municipalities bigger and smaller than what we are that are using this same process.
What's your question?
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, I have another question though before
Okay.
we move on. Have the last time the planning commission met, was this talked about or brought up in any kind of way or no?
No, ma'am. It's not something I don't. There's years ago the planning commission had development plan approval. The attorney general took that away, and they were given recommendations, and those escalated and got to the point where we were making concessions that were not developmentally, feasible. And I just it would have to be somebody above me to say whether or not going to the planning commission and talking to them about it. I don't think they're real happy with us as it is right now, because there's several of them that don't have much faith in the staff or the technical review committee, and challenge every comment that's made by department heads that are just department heads that we pay good money and they've got good education and they're dedicated. So I don't think input from planning commission would be any help.
Can I ask one more
Mr.
question?
President, I got one question.
Yeah.
I want to understand, by circumventing this process and keeping the planning commission out, we want development in the city of Montgomery. But by putting this in the ordinance or removing this from the ordinance, how are we circumventing to let the citizens of Montgomery have something to say about what goes on within their community? I understand we want development to make the process easier, but where do the citizens come in and point? Because I know it goes through the planning commission and we got experts to do all this, but we as representatives, we represent the people, so we never get to hear this until after the fact, then we can't circumvent.
Yes, sir. Okay, well, the only ones that you're not going to hear is the ones that the zoning is already in place and has been in place for a while.
Okay.
Okay, that being said, those areas and those spots are dwindling. They are coming in and coming back to you to get rezoned from, let's say, commercial back to residential. or
Okay.
whatever.
So that's-
I feel like you're going to see more than you don't see. And what's in place already is there, and where we're at is that someone has either bought that land or they got it rezoned years ago or whatever, and we're back to the fact that as long as they stay within the parameters and the rules that are in place, they have a right to develop the property.
Okay.
So there's not really anything that can be done, but that's just going to put more of a burden on the council to make sure that things are looked at the rezoning level from here on this forward, because that's where it's crucial. That's where things need to be discussed.
So it'll come to the council and not the planning commission?
Well, it still would go to the planning commission. It would still go to the planning commission for recommendations.
Okay.
So they can work it out. So the planning commission gets to see it, but they get to see it in a little bit more youthful situation. I mean, it's at the beginning. And a lot of times what happens is to get it worked out, they have to delay it I mean, they either delay or they make them go back to the drawing table, so to speak, or whatever. But ultimately, a lot of it is worked out by the planning commission, if not almost all, except when y'all see something a little different when it gets to you. But they do the legwork, and that will continue.
Okay.
And that's where it needs to happen.
That's the public side.
That's where it needs to happen. And the public input is great then and much appreciated. It's just not, once you get to a development plan that meets the criteria, it's more of a hindrance than anything.
All right, thank you.
Let me ask, you said that when the sign go out and somebody calls, you have had encounters where you would take them into rooms and kind of talk it out with them? Is that what you said?
No, ma'am, I'm sorry. I may have confused you there. There was a point in time when the planning commission declared that they did not want to see development plans. They didn't want to because they had lost, the city council, I believe, had taken the development plan approval from them, and that's where the attorney generals came in. At that point, I would take them, the people aside, and have, I guess, my own little public hearing, and most everything could be resolved. We can do something along those lines. We can set up, once this virus runs its course or whatever, we can set up places where they can call and talk to us, and if we can't talk them through, then we may have to set up a face-to-face, and in that case, I would ask for them to get any other concerned neighbors or whatever. But back again, to being honest, I can't do everything everybody wants, or we can't, because sometimes what they want is just not feasible.
It's impossible.
So you're saying at some point the Attorney General took this opinion was that this shouldn't be in place, and then they stopped hearing it, and then the council came back and ordered that they hear them again?
No, ma'am. They took, the Attorney General's opinion took away the approval.
Okay.
That's what was challenged, and then the city council wanted to let them continue to have recommendations, so the planning commission had recommendations. And this just, I reiterate, it's just become a hindrance at this point because there's not anything that can be done, but I truly believe that we can work and let the public know, and the ones that are concerned, we can figure out some way to do this.
Just want to have an answer when the public asks a question.
Yes,
That's
sir.
the main thing. Good deal. Okay. Thank you, James. All right, number 5 is the Jag Grant we always have every year. I don't think there's anything unusual about this. Anybody got any questions about number 5? Number 6 is where the police will be in here to talk about number 6. I believe that's right. Yeah, on the Empire Group. We'll have them come at the 5 o'clock meeting for a show cause on whether or not they should lose their license. And number 7 is the resolutions that would revoke their license if we see fit. Number 8 and number 9 are the same issues with Club Chirac. Show cause where the police department has got some information. And we would, in number 8, let them defend themselves. And number 9, we'll decide if they lose their license or not. Okay? Any questions on either one of those? chief is prepared for that.
Hey, Mr. Jim Wright, we're on 8 or 9?
I'm talking about 8 and 9, I just talked about 6 and 7 and 8 and 9, all four
Okay.
of them. And all of them are show cause hearings and resolution to revoke their license.
Okay, we know on 8 and 9, they owe us $34,000, right?
I think it says they had 60 days to pay it. That's what I was wondering
Yeah,
myself.
60 days to pay it. Now, it can vote up and down, it's the council person will in that district. But if we close them down and don't collect our money, we'll never collect it.
Well,
But we'll
it's
leave
my
that up to-
district, and
Yeah, I'm gonna follow your
I
lead,
want their
sir.
money,
Thank you, sir.
but I want them, I don't really like what they're doing over either.
And is some kind of way we can, like, not allow them to get another business license or something to kind of make sure we collect our money?
Can I, pull it around, I can't hear you.
Is there some way we can deny them from getting another business license or something to make sure we collect our money if we close them down? Do we have
I
any
think
means?
I think we have a legal right to sue them for the money if they don't pay us. Right? And I think we got a chance to get our money no matter what happens.
I think one of
Oh,
the
yeah.
keys, one of
This
the
is a
keys,
double deal. I mean, if you look at what's happened with them, a particular one, Chiroc's in my district, and the governor of Alabama said, do not have more than a certain number of people in your 50% of your capacity. They exceeded that capacity by 357. So they disobeyed the law from the governor, which was about the virus. We've all got these masks on. They didn't have masks on. They totally said, we don't care what the government says. So with that attitude, that doesn't make me want to help them a whole lot. Because I'm telling you how many folks they contaminated out of that for 500 people that night. So my heart's not very tender to this
Thank you, sir.
situation. Okay?
I'm a little concerned, Charles, also with the parking issues. I know that the
Exactly.
Liberty gas station guy came. He didn't get to speak last time. He'll probably come again, but the parking was.
Well,
where
I've
you
talked
park
to the
that many
gas
people?
station, I've talked to the Troy Motors, I've talked to the bank.
Mr. President,
All of them are upset.
that's a great question. Richard, Audrey and I talked about that, I think today. I can't remember. But could we have the fire department, somebody either now or when this comes up, how do we get to a 200 person occupancy if there's only 25, 30 parking places in the parking lot? How do we get there?
Good question, Mr. Pruitt.
Same way we do in Oak Cloverdale.
Square feet
Yeah.
in the building though, not
Part
More
of
of a
the street
zoning
there.
issue than it is a fire issue.
It's like the
Planning
building.
and zoning.
But does the parking included in that occupancy level?
No, sir, it's not. The occupancy level is based off your square footage and however many exits you have. Pretty much how your occupancy is.
I think what you're asking, Mr. Pruitt, is your parking is a planning deal. Every building has a certain number of parking spaces that have to go with that based on what they're gonna do. And I guess we may have a shortage there somewhere. Chris, you see what I'm talking about? We're talking about a building that probably got 20 parking spaces at most with 400 people going in there. I mean, there's no way you could ever park the people there in that particular parking lot. But
And Charlie,
somehow-
this isn't the first time we've run into it, the club out there on Wetumpka Highway.
Right, exactly.
Next to that oyster bar.
Yeah.
That only had like 5,
Oh,
but
yeah,
yet they had
yeah.
100 people.
Well, we need to approve it
Or
because of that.
Somehow we need to fix that aspect of it.
Yeah, this one's been there, had a bar there for many years, so
Yeah.
it's an issue for us, okay? We'll have to
Somehow
look
that's
at that
gotta
next
be
week. All right, let's go to number 10. I think that's right, yeah. Number 10 is the alternative transportation, heart-to-heart transportation, that's just normal. We'll talk to him when he shows up.
Got a question, Mr. President.
Which
We've
what
had
number?
about 3 or 4 of these come before us over the past year or so.
On number 10?
Alternative transportations. Have we got any, have anybody heard anything on how well they're doing, or is it a big clientele for that? Do we have a lot of people who use those? Do we know? And I know that has
I
nothing
think
to
we asked the
do.
question of him when he comes.
I didn't really hear what you said, Mr.
Oh,
Chairman.
but you're saying he had
not the same company, but just different companies
Oh, yeah, they're
have
different
come.
ones. They go and come. They find they can't make a dollar, they
Yeah,
leave.
so they have a big clientele, is it, okay, I just,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, they don't. It's
We never see them
pretty
again after they
specialized.
come.
A lot of it's just wheelchair business and whatever. All right, number 11 is the liquor
Mr.
license.
President, I want to carry this one over.
Okay.
I
Let's see
just
what
got a
we
lot
got.
going on with that one, so I just want to kind of carry it over.
Okay, sounds
Okay.
good. Number 11 be carried over. We'll have a public hearing on that.
Okay.
I thought I saw some information on that. Oh, yeah, it is, okay. Okay. All right, number 12. All premises only, Circle K, just a convenience store. Oh, what's going on here? Wetumpka Highway. This a new location? Yes, Tracy's.
It's right there at Forbes and Lower Wetumpka.
This is one of those must be zoned properly. It looks like they tore the old building down. Got. Oh, did it? Okay. Okay. We're gonna need to talk about that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm seeing church right behind it. Is that correct? Okay. And that may,
There's a service station right in front of it. I'm quite sure they sell,
there's a what?
yeah,
So that's not an issue?
yeah.
We already broke through?
They sell beer and wine in there, I'm quite
Okay.
sure.
All right,
Yeah.
okay. All right, number 13 is the Circle K on Troy Highway. Looks like this is just a transfer. Must be a transfer. What in the world's going on here? This year's,
There's nothing there, and it's just coming.
it's okay? Okay. Number 14, Airbase Boulevard, that's you, Audrey?
No, yeah, that's mine.
Number 14, that's you?
It's just, I guess they change of ownership. They
Yeah,
just
that's
want
all
to
it
do
is.
beer and wine. They've been doing it. I don't have a problem.
Should be no problem? Okay. Then we got the tear downs, only 4 of them today. And then you got your properties for the, we'll be looking at 5 o'clock on 16, and then the 17 is the rest of the stuff. All right, number 4, we got a packet here for number 4 too, when that comes up, so. Okay,
Mr. Chairman?
anybody got anything we want to talk about? Yes, sir.
I do. You know, we've had some discussions on what in the world are we going to do and how do we look at all this liquor licenses coming in. I have asked Amy Benefiel in our GIS department to produce us a map to scale so that we can look and have all of them located, whether or not they're package stores or ABC stores, so that we get a feel for what we actually have. And maybe from there we can look and decide if we need policies or whatever.
I like to say I've already been talking with Stacy about trying to create something, and she pulled up the ordinance that they have in Dothan, and it's a pretty good one, and I think that one would be good for us to look at and consider trying to bring that here, because listen, I know every side of town has had some issues, maybe not as many as others, but that has been the conversation even before I was elected, that they feel the only type of businesses coming in West Montgomery are package stores. No other kind of businesses coming. That's,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
who gonna come if we fill it up with package stores? Nobody's coming.
Yeah, the package stores seem to be additions right now, but I'd like to see that. If you could maybe send that mobile.
Oh, yeah. She
Around
sent it to
to
me.
We should do that. Audrey,
Good.
one other thing I want to bring up is that state ABC board is looking at this same scenario about package stores and whatever to make sure they're not zoned, they're given some rules statewide, because this is an issue statewide. And the state law enforcement agencies are also talking about it because they want input. So I've talked to Stacy about that. So I hope we just get them involved in whatever we do, because if the state comes up with some kind of rule, it may be good for us too. So, okay.
Yeah, I talked with Mr. Thigpen, and he was not quite for sure of what they were working on, if anything, on that end. Somebody may be working on it, they just haven't talked to him about it. And that's the only number I had was his number, so
You talking about from Dothan?
William Thigpen.
Okay, well, we just talked to
Yeah.
we talked to the commissioner. I mean, I had a conversation with him about something else, and he's all about this, so. And William Thigpen's, yeah, that's the number 2 guy. So, number one guy unelected, that's not appointed, yeah, okay. All right, anybody else?
Mr. President,
So
I got,
Go ahead,
Go.
Go ahead, Mr. Rodney.
well, in my district, we've been fighting about those green bins, and I think I have expressed it several times about getting those bins out of my district, and I think Chris and I talked about getting those registered some type of way so we can keep track of how those, like we'll clean up those bins one week, and then the next week back at the same point. It's like I said, they're putting it on private property, so we really don't know who to call, who to get in contact, how to remove them, and it's just a nuisance.
They make a dump out of it.
Make a dump. You know, people go through them and just throw them everywhere. Then the second thing that I have a lot of complaints about in my district is when we have those nuisance and we cut the grass, it looked just as horrible as before we cut it. They're not being. I mean, it's just.
Yeah,
the grass is just no catchers on the mowers, no weedy, no. I mean, they just running through it. And my district is complaining about. I have a lot of nuisance, and when you cut that grass and it just clumps up because it's so high, it looks worse than what it does before they cut it.
Right.
So we need to look at another method or a way to.
Chris, how do we do that? I mean,
And the people who abate it, they're not gonna do it. They don't rake it, they don't blow it, they don't edge it, they just run the thing.
So first of all, he's talking about 2 issues really. One is when we have abatement agents that the city hires, we hold them to a different standard. We make sure they don't have anything on the right of way, nothing in the street, nothing on the sidewalk. We don't require that they bag the grass, but as you pointed out, that might almost be a hard thing to do. But a lot of what you're seeing is when owners abate it themselves. And our only standard set by the council is that it be no greater than 12 inches in height. So we don't really have a leg to stand on in terms of what we can require of them, other than it needs to be lower than 12 inches, which is pretty tall grass.
That's high.
So suggestion being, tightening up, the requirements within the ordinance as a possibility. But if you're talking about city abatement agents, we do have control of that. We do a pre and post video of the property so that, when people complain to us and tell us that we didn't do this or we didn't require this, we actually have a pre and post video of what we've required before we pay the agent. So we're in pretty tight control, but it's when that owner goes out, once he receives that letter, and says, oh, I'm going to cut it myself and avoid council action, we go out and look, and then he's not in violation anymore. So technically, he's complied with what we've set forth.
Okay, I got you.
Chris,
We need to look at that ordinance.
would your department be overwhelmed if it was a 6 to 8 inch?
Would it be overwhelmed?
Yeah, I mean, if we went from 12 to 6 to 8, just so we can get ahead of it.
No, I would defer to my left over here just to know what the state would allow us to do. So I don't know the answer to that. I don't know what's set 12 versus 6 or 8. But no, that wouldn't be an unreasonable standard. That wouldn't help. That wouldn't change our point of view at all.
That's my question. So that's a legal question, Stacy?
We can look into it.
Okay. I think it would help tremendously. I mean, all of us get calls about grass.
Yeah.
And we need to get ahead of it.
Okay, Mr. Pruitt.
I want to change gears. The city of Montgomery did an RFP on street sweeping. And I want to ask Chris to talk about it a little bit today because we all want street sweepers in our neighborhoods, and he's got the price. And the company that's actually given us the quote is doing, Aronde, are doing those two neighborhoods today on Ray Thornton Road. So, Chris, if you just share with them what we found in it.
Yeah, so it's been a pretty lengthy process. We talked about this at the last budget hearing and talking about how we can get a citywide street sweeping proposal together. I've talked to several companies all across the Southeast in terms of what their interest would be in doing Montgomery. Unfortunately, we're kind of a smaller fish, you know, in the big pond or whatever. So. But we did put out a formal request for proposals, and we did get a hard bid from two companies. And in my opinion, I've talked to you about this, Glenn, they were much more reasonably priced than we ever would have imagined. The number we threw out last year was estimated to be about $250,000. Both of these bids came in under $100,000. The low bid was, we bid it per linear mile. We have approximately 1,300 miles of streets in Montgomery. So that low bid was about $55 a mile. And the second highest bid was about $75 a mile. So you're talking about a difference between $71,000 and about $98,000. But, you know, obviously both are very reasonable. The $71,000 winning group is the one that I believe Aronde has talked to, or maybe not. But
Yeah,
Have you used them yet?
yes, sir. They're out in Breckenridge right now and doing Thornton Trace tomorrow.
Okay.
And as I was sharing with Chris today, they picked up, as of today, 4 tons of rocks and pebbles in Breckenridge, which I shared with Chris is a relatively new neighborhood. So just imagine what is on our streets in the older neighborhoods. I mean, so pretty good deal.
And this RFP was you know, per linear mile. So it really wouldn't depend on how frequently you did it or how many. You know, it would be that cost per mile that they actually did. That's what we would pay them. So it wouldn't be like you give them $70,000 and they get out there and do the best they can. We would be, you know, we would have a good quality control issue there. But in terms of funding, you know, if we're talking about a citywide proposal, you know, you're talking about $72,000. So that's, you know, roughly $8,000 per council district. That's probably a pretty reasonable expenditure within each of your districts to try and give this a go for the first time through. Now, obviously, I think you're going to get more benefit if you have an ongoing problem rather than one time, because as I talked to Glenn, I drove out to Breckenridge today to see what they were doing. It looks beautiful, but in about 6 months, it'll probably be right back to, you know, the way it was, given just, you know, weather and rain and people blowing their stuff in the gutter and all the things that we know happens on a daily basis. So this would need to be kind of an ongoing thing. We might want to think about that.
Is this the Birmingham group that's doing this?
I think so. I'm not really familiar with either one of them in terms of
Now, my
me
understanding
personally.
was that we hadn't signed a contract.
Correct.
We got a bid from them, but we can use the other American Sweeping also.
No, this was bid out, so this would be a low bid situation. This exceeds the.
My information from you last week was we could still use American Sweeping.
Well, what I told you was you can. We haven't signed.
Okay.
We haven't signed any kind of exclusive contract that says any sweeping company can't do work in Montgomery. If any particular councilman wants to engage any particular sweeping company, they're certainly able to do that. It's not going to knock them out. I was just saying that if we entered into this, that company
Would be less expensive.
would have won the bid to do a one-time sweeping of every street in the city of Montgomery that has curb and gutter.
So that, Chris,
How long
would
were
that
they
be,
going to take to do that, Chris?
Their estimate, and I think the contract sets out a period of like 4 months.
4 months?
Yeah. So.
And you've already started in District 8?
No. Well, I mean, he did that on his own. It has nothing to do with this contract.
I did it out of my own capital improvement account.
Yeah, well, we've always done that
Yeah.
with our stuff.
Yeah, we haven't started the program. We haven't done it. We haven't gotten any kind of
So you just
funding
make, you
approved.
made a bid with these people, they gave you the same
And
price.
I just blindly picked up the telephone and called them. And
So you
they
didn't know
had
about-
entered an RFP. I didn't have a clue who they
You
were.
hadn't know who they were,
I had no idea.
but they got a place here in Montgomery?
No, out of Birmingham.
That's what I thought.
Out of
But
Birmingham.
American Sweeping's here in town, and they were, but we needed, I think, use the best one, but whatever. Because it's a need, big time need.
And if it's something that this council wants to do, we need to all sit down and talk about it, because I think like Chris said, and I want to understand that if our streets some of our neighborhoods have never been done, ever. So when he goes down that street one time, we're probably going to have to come back, like Chris said, in 6 months, and then maybe go to a year process to be able to get all this stuff.
Yeah, it's better,
Because I'm learning way more. And one of the big issues I talked to Chris about is that the citizens, to and including the grass companies in this town, continue to blow these grass clippings out in the street. And the street sweepers got to stop, get out, clean their thing with all the grass and stuff, and then it clogs our stormwater systems and that sort of stuff. So we really need people not to blow their grass into the street and stuff.
And Mr.
Let
Chris,
me ask a question about that. Have all the grass cutting companies, they have license?
They do.
Can we put out a letter to each one of those, there's a blanket to all these people that do business in Montgomery cutting grass, if they need to clean it up, keep the trash out,
We have included with their mail out from time to time the statement of the ordinance that says you can't blow things into the street
Okay.
and those sorts of things, but I don't think ignorance of the law is why they're doing it.
No.
Yeah, they do it because they can get away with it.
It's just the enforcement part.
And, well,
Catch it.
we have an
Nobody
ordinance.
catch it.
We have an ordinance on it, but you actually somebody's got to be there physically
Yeah.
to see them doing it.
I literally pull up on them in West Montgomery,
Okay.
and I ask them, "Are you gonna get that up?" And then when I tell them who I
All
am,
about
they say,
policing.
"Yeah, I'm gonna get it up."
Yeah.
And so, Chris, if it's somebody that's doing an abatement agent that came out and did a piece of property, and somebody called, because we got some lots that I know abatement agents do, no one's cutting it, and I think they may be state-owned pieces of property. And they have paper in them, and I mean, it just look bad when they cut all that paper and stuff up in it. So if we call and let you know that they left that property looking like that, will y'all have them come back out and make that property look better, or is that not a part of it? It doesn't matter about
I would love to work with you on a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
You let me know a particular address, I'll work with you.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
All right, anybody else got any questions? We're about time, we need to adjourn this meeting so we can start the next one. Okay. Anybody got anything? Okay, I'm going to adjourn this meeting. Anyone in the